All right, I'll go ahead and get us started. Welcome to the Michigan Works Association 2021 Annual Conference. My name is Jeff Cassidy. I'm the Director of Policy with the Michigan Works Association. On behalf of the staff at the association and all of our sponsors, we thank you for being a part of the conference in this session titled West Michigan Tech Talent Presents the Michigan Code Experience. Please be sure to visit the exhibitor booths during the designated exhibit hall times. Before we begin today's session, there's a few housekeeping items I'd like to share with you. Please make sure your audio is muted. If you have any questions or issues, please put them in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat and we can address those as they come up. We are eager for your feedback about the conference for this session, so please take a few moments to complete the short survey. I'll put a survey link in the chat, so after the workshop is over, please feel free to fill out that survey for us. Presentations will be available post-conference on the Michigan Works Association website. And now I would like to introduce our moderator, speaker for the session, Ann Pentiak, Industry Council Lead with West Michigan Works. Ann?
Hi, thank you, Jeff, and welcome everyone. We're thrilled to have you all here. We have a great panel discussion for you today where we will be sharing our playbook for something that West Michigan Tech Talent has been working on for quite a while. Before we kind of get into that, I'm going to give everyone a chance to do a brief introduction about who they are. So I will start. My name is Ann Pentiak, as Jeff mentioned, and I was the Industry Council Lead for West Michigan Works, convening West Michigan Tech Talent, which is a council comprised of employers of IT professionals, workforce and development, economic opportunity partners, as well as education partners. I recently, at the end of August, transitioned to a new role as Talent Development Liaison within the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, Workforce Development Sector Strategies team. So I'll still be focusing on the information technology sector, but now I'll be with LEO WD. Prior to starting this role, as I mentioned, I was with West Michigan Works for about 5 years. And so I'm honored to still be able to present this great work. So I'll turn it over to Lindsay, if you want to do a brief introduction.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ann. Great to be here with you all today. My name is Lindsay Tilley, and I was initially connected to this work through my role at Kent Intermediate School District, supporting all educators here in Kent County. So I had the opportunity to serve on West Michigan Tech Talent for 5 years, both as a committee member and a committee lead, and I have a real passion for this grow segment of the West Michigan Tech Talent Committee, and was very honored to make some of these Hour of Code, the My Coding experience come to life here in the greater Kent County area. I am currently, I've stepped out of education more into the corporate front, so I am now in training at Amway, but still very passionate about bringing technology broader to students.
Thank you, Lindsay. Okay, we'll turn it over to Larry.
Hey everybody, my name is Larry Nguyen. I'm with the MySTEM Network. We're also a branch out of LEO, the Labor Economic and Opportunity State Agency. My primary role, I'm wearing the Codeorg shirt here. I don't work for Codeorg, but I run Codeorg Professional Learning for teachers across the state of Michigan, along with promoting Hour of Code across the state of Michigan. And so I got connected with West Michigan Tech Talent to help promote further. And I believe this is one of the greatest, or one of the best ways that we have seen businesses connecting with the K-12 districts. So I'm excited to share it with you today.
Thank you for being here, Larry. And then Sharon.
Hi, thanks so much. And good morning, everyone. My name is Sharon Vrain Robinette, and I work for Spectrum Health. And Spectrum Health, of course, is the largest employer in West Michigan. So I am sort of the corporate rep here, even though it's a nonprofit. Anyway, I work in their information services department, and I do I do non-clinical. I do career pathway programs. I manage those. And in addition to an apprenticeship program and a college intern program, my job is also to help develop IT interest and skills in K-12 scenarios. So I get to do community-facing work. And so I'm excited to be here. I've been on the West Michigan Tech Talent Grow Committee for 3 years, about. And so glad to be here. And thanks for the invitation, Ann.
Absolutely, Sharon. Thank you so much. So to give our audience a little bit of a high-level overview, career exploration, right? Career exploration opportunities, we have learned, can improve students' knowledge of career options. It can encourage them to develop and work toward goals during like those critical learning years. West Michigan Tech Talent, we are introducing this playbook to help workforce agencies such as the folks in the room, employers, and educator partners to introduce students to careers and concepts in technology and computer science. The My Code experience is designed to inspire and empower students, typically 3rd through 5th grade, but it can, as you'll learn through our discussion, it can be for any age. 3rd through 5th graders is what we've focused on historically, and it's to help them explore coding and other computer science concepts like logic and reasoning. The playbook that we're going to be talking about today includes some best practices, resources, timelines, and other resources that you can use to implement the My Code experience in your regions of the state and help grow future IT professionals in your own region. So just to kind of take it up one more level, so as Larry mentioned, Code.org and the Hour of Code. So the Hour of Code is a global movement. It's international, countries all over the world. They get together during Computer Science Education Week and they do these coding tutorials where it's everybody's coding at the same time. And many years ago, West Michigan Tech Talent set out to create a framework where we can start implementing it in our region. As Lindsay mentioned, the sort of greater Kent County region to start. So now that you've had a high-level overview of what it's all about, I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay, and we're going to talk to Lindsay a little bit about the history of the event, specifically in West Michigan, and what inspired the group. So, Lindsay, what was, you were there in those beginning days, so what was the initial inspiration?
It's funny actually to think back to those very, very early days of this endeavor, because in many ways our objective was super broad, and we were really just looking for ways to share information about technology careers with younger students. What we were seeing, there was a large trend that a lot of students didn't talk about computer science careers at all until much later in their educational pathway. Sometimes as more advanced, junior, seniors in high school would start talking about computer science or engineering specifically for a career path. But what we realized in West Michigan is we were facing a significant talent deficiency in technology. And just simply from a numbers perspective, we were never going to meet the kind of demand that we were starting to see if we didn't get more of our students thinking about careers in technology at a much younger age. And, what we were finding is, especially when you look at students in 3rd through 5th grade, which was our initial target audience, they are fully native in the digital landscape. I mean, they can make technology function in all sorts of ways, but they don't ever spend much time, and they're not alone in this, adults are the same in many cases, thinking about how does this work and what is making my video game display to me the way that it is. How does my iPad know when I'm at Target, or my phone know when I'm at Target? They don't ask those questions. So we wanted to just sort of figure out a way to start a conversation. And we also had identified through lots of conversations with our educational partners that technology specifically can be a very intimidating space for teachers to just do a quick activity in. So we'd seen the incredible resources that were available in Hour of Code, and we felt like they're out there and they're awesome and they're beautiful, but just sending them out to teachers and saying, here's something you might add to your teaching curriculum was going to be like a fruitless effort, because their teaching curriculums are already so packed. And for many teachers, trying to get familiar enough to teach a coding activity would feel like probably a bigger lift than they were willing to pick up on their own. So we were trying to figure out a way that we could kind of offer some supports around the incredible resources that were there, and also just make truly the very simplest distilled version of this was, how can we make coding fun, bring it to a classroom where the teachers don't have to do the teaching. They can be there for the support, but they don't have to do the teaching. So maybe we'll show some teachers some things. We'll definitely show some kids some things. And at the end of the day, we'll just explore together a resource that's available to all.
Awesome. And so you kind of talked a little bit about like the process and some of those initial goals. First year, inaugural year of doing this, what did you have metrics in place? Were there certain numbers you wanted to hit, or what did that look like?
So in our very grassroots early years, we were like, let's just see if we can get anybody to do this. I mean, we weren't sure if we could sell this. We were pretty sure we could sell it to a few teachers. We had good relationships in a lot of buildings, and we felt like there are some teachers that will let us come in. I mean, we were asking, the engagement is about an hour and a half worth of time. So we felt like we would have some luck getting people to let us in the door, but we were just hoping to sort of see how it went. We were really hoping to pilot it and just see if we could get it off the ground. And if the idea that we had was, if we could sort of validate that it was worthwhile. So at the very beginning, I think our goal was around 500 students, something along those lines, which we felt like might be a little aggressive, but we found out that actually getting the numbers of students was easier than we thought.
Awesome. And so, if someone's picking up this playbook and saying, okay, I want to do this, how did you go about identifying like the right stakeholders? Like, who did you, the group, kind of feel strongly, okay, we need these folks at the table if we're going to get this off the ground?
Absolutely. So West Michigan Tech Talent, our GROW committee, which was a group of people that were passionate about bringing more technology to students in the K-12 space at the time, was our focus. That was made up of some employers. So we had members of Spectrum Health. We had members of a local company called OST. From an educator perspective, I sat on that committee, and we also had 2 members from university settings that were part of that committee at the time as well. And what was really important about that is we had people on both sides of the fence, so to speak. So we had people that were going to be talking directly to educators, explaining to them why this program had the validity of this program, as well as we had people on the corporate side that could help us do the recruiting of the mentors. So that was really, I think, the most important piece, is that there were people from both sides of the aisle, if you will, trying to kind of meet in the middle to make this as successful as possible.
Awesome. Thank you, Lindsay. And, to give the audience just an idea of what it looks like, the framework that West Michigan Tech Talent put to the Hour of Code global movement is what we do is we identify classrooms, we identify IT professionals, and we matchmake. So we find an IT professional who can be a mentor to that 3rd through 5th grade classroom. And they go in, it's about an hour and a half long that they spend with the students, where they go through a presentation, which I'll show you in the playbook when we share our screen here shortly. But they also, we have a presentation all laid out for the mentor. So not only are they talking about their own education pathway, what they like about coding, the cool things they've done or made with code, they're also walking the students through a tutorial on the code.org website, which we'll discuss later in our presentation, but just to kind of give you an idea, to be able to conceptualize and visualize what it looked like. So it's IT professionals that get paired with the classroom, and they go in, talk about careers in technology, and then they lead the students through a coding tutorial, which is usually takes the form of like a fun game. And Larry, our Code.org partner, we can talk about that here shortly as well. Before I start sharing the screen with the actual playbook, one other thing. So in those first few years, Lindsay, can you talk about some of like the challenges or obstacles the group faced, whether they were sort of, we knew it was going to be a hiccup, or if it came out and it was a surprise sort of challenge?
Well, as with any like brand new grassroots kind of, let's just try it and see pilot initiative. There were several hiccups. I would say one of the biggest hiccups, I don't even know if it's to call it a hiccup. We didn't want to say no to anybody in the first year. We wanted to be super flexible to try to make it work for any teacher that was interested, no matter if they came in within our timeline, if they came in late. And because we did that, I think we created a good amount of scrambling that was required on our part, frankly, to try to meet all the demands and to make sure that each one of those classroom teachers had a mentor that was available to come in and work with our students. So that was a significant challenge. We also had some real growing pains trying to figure out the best way to connect the mentor with the teacher and let the mentors sort of be have some autonomy in selecting the time frame that worked best for them. At first, we did that far too manually before we started using some different programs to do that. So that was, I would say that was a little bit tricky. And probably the other big thing that was a challenge at first was we didn't have a shared Gmail account, which came later in the process. So what happened was we were all intercepting requests and feedback from different people at different times. And it was very difficult because all of us are volunteering as members of this committee. So we're also doing our day job. And so it was very challenging to realize that sometimes we didn't have all the pieces of the puzzle that were coming to like a shared space. So eventually identifying a single point of contact for this program was extremely important. And we definitely worked through many of those kinks as we went forward. But at the beginning, those were some of the biggest hurdles.
When we talk about the tools that we used, that shared inbox was a game changer for sure. All right, well, I'm going to take a moment now that you kind of have an idea of like the history and where we've been. I'm going to share a few sections of the playbook with the group so you can kind of see what it looks like. So, okay, are we sharing? We're seeing it. Thumbs up. Oh, there it is. Okay. So this is the project playbook for the My Code experience. Over here. Okay. So the first thing I kind of wanted to show you is we do have a nice like overview or table of contents that has like overview, stakeholders, all of the pertinent sort of topics within this event. So all of the information that you need. Is easy to find right here in this table of contents. And we have a ton of appendices as well with supplemental documents that can help as you start your event and then as you continue to kind of grow it up. So first thing I kind of wanted to draw your attention to, again, we have a nice event overview. So as you're talking to other stakeholders in your region, thinking, okay, let's put this together. Who needs to be at the table? We have a nice outline of the event, as well as who the stakeholders that, West Michigan Tech Talent has used, and then of course can be tailored to wherever you are. We did mention some of the tools that we've used over the years to help, but this event is growing and changing as technology grows and changes as well. So in subsequent years, I'm sure that this list will continue to grow. The other things that we'll kind of get into in our next discussion, we will talk about some of the skills you'll need, as well as like budget options. So don't be intimidated thinking, oh no, I have to have a crazy budget. We'll kind of get into that because the great thing about this event is it is totally customizable to whatever resources you have. Okay, so now kind of showed you a little sneak peek of the playbook. So now we're gonna address the whole group. Now that you have a sense of the history, stakeholders, we're gonna dig in a bit deeper, and we're going to talk about timelines, tools, resources, and some impact. So Lindsay kind of talked about creating or how the event kind of came to be. So I'm going to turn it back over to Lindsay and talk about that initial timeline. Can you kind of give us an idea about, how it has evolved each year, lead times, things like that?
Yeah. So if you are working on kind of what we ended up calling our traditional hour of code experience, where we had a single classroom participating with a mentor that went into that classroom to facilitate. we knew we were working with a fairly finite amount of time, right? And we based our experience date on that National Hour of Code, which generally fell in the first week of September. I think I looked it up. This year, it's December 6th through the 12th are those dates. So that was always the block of time that we initially shot for. And then we also extended the experience into the next week as well, just so teachers and mentors had 2 weeks of potential times to choose from. So then we knew that we couldn't approach any teachers before September. Obviously, no teachers want to hear from anybody outside of their building when they're first working to get their kids, into some sort of semblance of order and normalcy. So we knew we really couldn't approach teachers much before really the end of September. So then so that was our timeline. We had from the end of September until the beginning of December to get everybody organized and to get all of the content laid out and everybody equipped to go in and do these connection points in early December. So we would start with the teachers. We'd go to them first and look for teachers that were interested in having this experience for their students and ask them to commit to a day. The one thing that's wonderful about elementary schools, their schedules are pretty set, but there are some flexibilities. But they know that like music is on Mondays and Spanish is on Tuesdays. So we would give them the opportunity to sort of select a chunk of time that would be best for them. Initially, the very first year we did this, we said, anytime, you just tell us what time is best. And they would say like Tuesday from 10:12 a.m. to, 11:37. And we were like, oh, wow, that's so specific. That's very, very challenging. So in subsequent years, we kind of said, you can choose like an AM section or a PM section. And then what that allowed us to do was sometimes double mentors up. Like a mentor might see on the board that there were opportunities to go in and do two classrooms back to back. So they could actually work with 60 students in the span of 3 hours and only have to take, that time from their day job. So we got a little bit more regimented with that as we went. But basically, we all based it around the National Week of Computer Science, trying to bring some energy to that time period. We also found that traditionally that was fairly, teachers were pretty happy to have kind of something new and different. It's the beginning of winter. It's getting close to that winter break. And it was nice to kind of have some fresh air, something different come into their classroom. So we found that window was very good for teachers and facilitators as well.
Thank you, Lindsay. So Code.org is a huge partner with this event. So I'm going to talk to Larry a little bit right now. So can you talk about Code.org as a partner for what we've been doing? And then maybe what types of tutorials are available? Like are there other kinds of resources or versions of the tutorials that folks can use when they implement this in their own areas?
Yeah, so we use Code.org as a partner. So they are a national nonprofit with their goal of getting young women as well as underrepresented groups into computer science. Like that's their ultimate goal. And so they started that movement, Hour of Code, back in 2013. And since then, it's blown up. Not only does Code.org provide resources, but there are several other organizations that provide resources. And they culminate all this on the Hour of Code website. So I'll put that link to the chat for you if you would like to go check that out. But the Hour of Code activities, there's everywhere from kindergarten level all the way up through high school. And I mean, there's a plethora of them. The one I would suggest the most came out, I think it was 2019, was the dance party. And to me, that was the most exciting one because it integrated music as well as coding. And so whether a student was excited about doing computer science, majority of the times they were excited just to listen to the music. And so they can mess around with the music as well as trying to learn at the same time. If you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen here real quick and do this on the fly. So hopefully this works out fine. Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. Awesome. And so this is the Hour of Code website. It is hosted by Code.org, but like I said, multiple other organizations are in here. You can filter on the side for what types of activities that you're looking for. But you can see here's that dance party. And I even brought that dance party up here. The activities are extremely simple. They're drag and drop blocks. And so for a student, it's easy to pick up, it's easy to use, and it's also scaffold for the students. The other part that I love about this is it's easy for the teacher to pick up too. As both Ann and Lindsay were mentioning, most of these teachers, they have no computer science background. They're not unsure about how to do this. And so it's pretty easy to follow, even from a teacher's perspective. And so pretty straightforward. But like I said, the students pick their own music. They do everything themselves, and they just have a blast doing it at the same time. So I'll pass it back to you, Ann.
Thanks, Larry. Yeah, and honestly, every year the Grow Committee, we kind of spend some time looking at the new tutorials. Code.org usually releases one sometime in the fall, like late fall. And so it's always fun to kind of get into the new tutorials, play around with them yourselves, and see which one you want to run with. So yeah, it's always fun to see those come out. And I don't have a technical background either. So for me, being able to kind of get in there, see the bits and pieces and the components and how it works certainly helped me with the first class I ever mentored. So yeah, Hour of Code website that Larry put into the chat is another great resource. Okay, so we're going to share the playbook again. And now, since we've kind of talked about lead times and schedules and what that looks like, I'm just going to kind of walk you all through the timeline. So just give me one moment, share my little happy screen here. Okay. All right. And I'm working on 3 screens, so I apologize that I'm looking over this way. But so yeah, as Lindsay mentioned, it's hard to kind of connect with David. That's an excellent question, and we will be talking about that here soon. Yes, so as we're talking about timelines, yeah, for educators, trying to talk to them before September is really challenging. So the committee usually plans starting in September, where we convene the committee, we start recruiting educators. October, we start preparing materials and recruiting mentors, and then doing the matchmaking. In November, that's when we connect the mentors with their specific classrooms. And we use that using a Sign Up Genius. That's what we've used to kind of pair so mentors can see what educators are available. And they can, kind of pick and choose whichever fits into their schedule. They can sign up for multiple classrooms if they want to mentor multiple classes. And then in December, that's when we host the event. And in the playbook, we have it listed out by month. So September, weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4, here are the important tasks that you need, that our group has focused on. So by the middle of September, we're responding to questions, comments, and concerns from educators. For example, October, in those first few weeks, we are closing registration, we're downloading the data and cleaning it up, seeing how many classrooms and students we have registered for that year. We start creating forms and scripts to send to our educators and or our mentors. And since Tech Talent has done this for quite a few years, we do have a lot of repeat classrooms and mentors that come back every year because they enjoy the experience so much. Once we get into November, that's when we're really finalizing everything. So we're closing our mentor sign up. The West Michigan Tech Talent Rep connects educators and mentors with the materials they'll need for the day, such as an agenda, the curriculum, contact information, and scripts for that are found within this playbook as well. So you can, as you use this playbook, you can kind of tailor it to fit your needs, but we do have some nice templates in here to make it just so you can see the language that Tech Talent has used in the past. And then again in December, we monitor that shared inbox, and then we respond to questions and concerns. And then during National Computer Science Education Week, that's when we implement. And as the event grew, Tech Talent eventually did start hosting it over a 2-week period. But, traditionally it is just during that 1 week in December. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing again. All right, so we've talked a lot about the partners, timelines. Now I'm going to turn it over to Sharon, We're going to talk to Sharon a little bit about the mentor component, the IT professionals that go into the classroom. So Sharon, when recruiting, mentors for this event, can you share with us like some best practices you've discovered and, how you get your teams excited about connecting with students?
Yeah, well, first of all, best practices have someone in the job before you who did a lot of work. And so that actually was Lindsay in my experience. And so she had done a lot of work for Spectrum Health and had built some really good connections and had built good relationships between West Michigan Tech Talent and several of the IT professionals in the shop. Now, Spectrum Health has 1,100 IT professionals in their information service department. And so I have the benefit and then sometimes the overwhelming challenge of having many, many people to ask to come and do this work. And one thing that's worked pretty well, subsequent or like the first year I punted and then subsequently after that, there are several things that worked well. And in part, using the opportunity to get, and I'll talk about this in terms of a different strategy in just a little bit, to get managers to take their whole team to a school and do it simultaneously. They then were able to do, and they use this as a community benefit, and then also they then tacked on a team lunch or a team happy hour afterwards. And so they also were able to do it as a sort of employee engagement experience. The other thing that really works well too is to use, peer pressure. That works, and getting people who've done it before to tell other people how great it is. And so with that, it works out well. And I also think for new people in that scenario, it's good to have partners. So if you can send a couple people in at the same time, it's very helpful. They feel pretty strongly then that they can be successful. And then the one thing that I think, and we'll talk about this too in terms of resources, because Anne said, what resources do you need in the classroom are the important ones? And really the key is the teacher, as far as I'm concerned. And that also the promise to the mentors that the teachers will be in the room so that they have no responsibility for discipline. That's a key, right? So they're coming in, they're talking for an hour and a half, or they're not talking for an hour and a half, they're leading an activity for an hour and a half. And it's an activity they love. And so that is a pretty good recruiting method, I think, that they don't have to do anything really hard like wrangling 25 fourth graders, which is really hard. So it's good to have them have that assurance in advance.
Yeah, excellent point, Sharon. You're right. That number one resource is having the teacher in the room with you. Because yes, as Larry mentioned in the chat, the students do love having visitors. They get so pumped. It's really exciting to see. Okay, so you've recruited some mentors. I don't know about you all, but for me, I haven't interacted with a 3rd through 5th grader in a really long time. And so I don't know, Lindsay or Sharon, one or both, can you talk a little bit about how do you prep your mentors to engage with a 3rd through 5th grader?
I think Sharon nailed it. I had those exact notes. We learned the first year that we weren't super clear on the role of the teacher in this time and the role of the mentor in this during this experience. And that was a real miss on our part. We got much better about being very clear when we sent that introductory email to say to the teacher, hey, meet your mentor. They're coming to you from Herman Miller or OST or Spectrum Health. And when they're in the classroom, this is what they'll do. And this is what we would also like for you to do during this time. First and foremost, be there, because that teacher magic is something special. You cannot just all of a sudden be somebody that knows how to, run a full classroom of 25 to 30 students. So, and Sharon's exactly right. That really did help mentors feel more comfortable to know that the teacher would always be there. We also went through quite significant process of making sure that all the mentors had a script. Now, not all mentors need a script, not all mentors wanted a script, but we wanted to make sure that we knew that some of our mentors who were stepping out into a classroom wouldn't have been back in a classroom since, they were a third grader. So this was an opportunity for them to just have some real clear talking points to make sure if they wanted to lean on a script, they certainly could. We also sent out an opportunity to watch a seasoned mentor run through the presentation once. So there was a video option, and as well as some of Sharon's team members from Spectrum Health who had been involved with it for years would host some mentor prep sessions. So if people wanted to jump into a Zoom call, I think they would do 2 or 3 every year, say, hey, these are available the week before. So right before we were asking people to go into the classroom, jump on, we're going to talk you through it. You ask us any questions. You've got all the materials in front of you now. Let's just make sure you're comfortable with how it's all going to flow. And we found that those pieces, lots of people didn't come into the Zoom, but those that did found it very helpful. And other people were very happy just to lean on the script and the video option. And often their partner or other seasoned mentors that would go with them. So all of those pieces really allowed people to kind of find what was most comfortable for them.
It was me. I was mentor who didn't know and really relied on that script my first year. I was like, I haven't spoken to students myself in forever. So that script, which is built into the presentation, was super helpful for me.
But it also, I don't want to undercut all of Anne and Lindsay's work either, because they forgot to mention the key piece as well, besides teachers, is the manila folder filled with all of the resources. So that was presented by West Michigan Tech Talent Team, the Grow Committee. It was all done for mentors. So they would get all the handouts they needed. They would get the script in this manila folder, the magic manila folder. And then another key piece, well, we may get to it in a minute too, is that every kid would get earbuds. And so it's much quieter in the classroom. Once you got students plugged in, they were gone, and they were engaged, but they were very focused, and it wasn't loud. In any case, all of that work was done in advance so that the teacher had told us how many people would be in their class, how many handouts they needed. All of that was presented to the mentor, and then the mentor would bring it in, and then they also in advance then would be able to see all the resources they have and have a sense of what the event would look like. And also they had that script, which was so important. So that was a ton of work for folks. I never had to do it, so thank you for that. But in any case, that was an important piece that all the mentors relied on and could rely on.
Absolutely, Sharon. And then having that shared inbox, if a mentor received their packet, their folder, the bag with the materials, they had an opportunity to kind of go through that and then reach out and say, hey, Tech Talent, I got this, handout for like logic sequencing, it has a robot on it. I don't know what I'm doing with this. So there was opportunity for them to go through the materials, really familiarize themselves with the materials and how they would then use them in the classroom. So that's a great point, Sharon. An ongoing goal for West Michigan Tech Talent has been to grow this experience every year and reach more and more students every year. And in 2019, I believe it was 2019, Spectrum Health and the mentors there, they did something a little different. And, so not only does Tech Talent want to grow the event as many students as possible, we're really focused on creating opportunities for students who wouldn't be able to do this otherwise, who maybe hadn't been able to participate in the past. Maybe they don't have the resources. So Sharon, can you talk a little bit about what Spectrum Health did in 2019 to engage with like underserved students in the Grand Rapids community?
Yeah, thanks. So one of Spectrum's values and focus, well, not a value, but definitely a focus for Spectrum Health is focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and also focusing on communities that we serve, right? Then improving health in communities we serve and inspiring hope. So community investment's very important. As you know, Spectrum Health, their main building is in downtown Grand Rapids. And so the focus on Grand Rapids Public Schools seemed pretty logical for us, and also important. I also want to qualify what I'm about to say in a little bit based on grassroots movements. So when I came into the GROW committee, the grassroots movements of the folks that had been there before doing all this great work really focused on the relationships that they had, because you needed to get to teachers that you knew quickly, right? And this is all volunteer work. And so they relied on their network. And that makes total sense. At the same time, as the initiative matured, it was also time to maybe expand it beyond people's networks that originally were there. And full transparency, I'm a Grand Rapids Public School parent, and so my networks are in Grand Rapids Public Schools. So where I did not have to work really hard to make these connections, but it also enabled me to make some connections very quickly. So what we did is we intentionally, and that's a key word, the intentionally focused on Grand Rapids Public School buildings. And we chose 3 to start with, North Park Montessori, Grand Rapids Montessori, and CA Frost. And in part, that was because of my networks, and in part because it was a strong way to pilot things. In the sense that we would limit ourselves to 3 buildings. We went to those, I had a meeting with each principal individually. So I'm just giving you the list of meetings that had to happen here. So list of meetings with each principal. They then put me to a vice principal, most likely, or a team lead. I then met with all the teachers in those grades, and we decided to do all the grades of the whole school at the same time. So in a Montessori curriculum, you have 4th through 6th grade students in one classroom. So we did all the 4th through 6th grade classrooms at North Park, all the 4th through 6th grade classrooms at Grand Rapids Montessori, and then I think it's the 4th grade, all the 4th grade classrooms at CA Frost. And so I brought in all the mentors at the same time, for the most part. Maybe there was a switch here or there, but it really was focused at the same time, in the same place. And that enabled teams to go in and do the lunch together before or afterwards too, right? And then Grand Rapids Public School is 15,000 students, 80 countries are represented, 70 languages. It's very diverse. All students currently have free lunch. Most qualify for free or reduced. They get significant, I mean, it's a large urban school district. It's the largest urban school district in Grand Rapids, Michigan, or in Kent County area. So with that, we focused on those schools specifically. We did not make them sign up through the Sign Up Genius. That can be intimidating. Also, spots go pretty quickly at this point. People missed them. We brought all of the resources to the schools. I met with all the teachers, surveyed all the teachers, connected with all the teachers individually, and it worked. They were very happy about it. I did pull up the survey that I sent out afterwards, and with that work, my question was, hey, we did all of this separately for you. In the future, how would you feel about going through our regular process, right? So that we could, the next time, would it work to just go without the special attention? And 75% said yes. 25 did not. So I don't know how we would do it again. Of course, 2020 changed some things that we'll talk about in a second, but, you know, it was a lot of work. I would say, though, that if you do the initial work and keep up the relationships, it's highly likely that the second year you won't have to. I started making some connections with a couple of other schools the following year through career fairs and things like that. And we were on our way to making those relationships and making those appointments, and were interrupted. But I think once it's done once and they see it, it ends up being something that they feel like they can do on their own. And in part, and we're going to get to this now, I imagine, is that the classroom experience is so good, right? And so just organically going to that topic, you get in that classroom, the kids are super excited about seeing you. You go through a give and take Q&A session about a logic problem, because a lot of tech skills are not actually on the computer. They're happy you're there. They find you interesting. And so that's sort of fun too, being found interesting for the first time in a while. In any case, once that happens, they're excited, you're interesting, you give them earbuds, which they then are very grateful for. And they are very cheap earbuds, but boy, do they make that room quiet. And once those kids plug into the Hour of Code website from Code.org, it is a room full of engaged kids. And they can pretty much do it on their own. It is not a difficult experience, and they go. So it's a pretty cool. It's a pretty cool experience for both the mentor and the students. Lindsay, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I love all of that. And, one of my other things I just wanted to tack onto Sharon's, one thing that I found every year that I mentored was that there would be a student in that classroom that was not used to being really great at the classroom things. And I am not joking. This happened every year. A teacher would say, like, it's so fun to see so-and-so leading the charge, because what you see immediately happen as soon as Sharon said, they get their earbuds in and they get focused on that screen, you are no longer in control. They are on their own path. But what you do see a ton of is that turning and talking to your neighbor. I see you've already passed this level and I can't figure out how to get my coding blocks in the right order. And all of a sudden there's like one or two kids that have flown through it. And all of a sudden they get to be the teachers walking around helping their classmates. And it is such a cool moment of value, a value for themselves, to see themselves in this new light of like, wow, I'm really good at this. And you can be sure, I would then point out to them, like, you can do this for a job someday, like keep working at it. But like, there's careers in this for you, because it was really neat to see them just light up with that sense of pride in their accomplishments.
It is incredible to see the students when they get really pumped and they're like, here, let me help you work through this. If they see one of their peers struggling, it was incredible to see. So we kind of talked a little bit about 2019 and some different things we did. And then we're going to kind of talk a little, and we're kind of getting close on time. So we're going to do the next 2 points real quick. 2020 threw a wrench, I think, in literally everything always, right? Let's talk a little bit about what we did to adapt for 2020, not being able to get into the classrooms because of the pandemic. So Sharon, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the asynchronous lesson plan that we put together that's still available on the website.
Sure. We did a couple things for the Grow Committee. So I don't know if you remember immediately when things shut down, and I don't know your experiences there, but if you were a parent on Facebook, what you would see is a lot of like, oh my word, what are we going to do with kids? And so West Michigan Tech Talent, the Grow Committee, put together a really good resource on, like, if your kids are going to be online anyway, why don't you have them do these things? And so we got that resource put together and circulated. So that was a really important piece, which then fed into our Hour of Code, which ended up being asynchronous. We put the lesson plan on the website for West Michigan Tech Talent. Larry just posted it in the chat, and people could do it. right? The teachers could do it on their own. And actually, it was sort of funny. I know for some of the teachers that I reached out to, they were like, sorry, I've been using that this whole time because I needed something to do when they go home, because the GRPS was not able to go back to school at all full time last year. So they'd been using those resources. I mean, like that was this awesome thing because it was very heartwarming that, oh no, we can't do our code because we've integrated it into every week. So that was a good day, right? Because that's absolutely the code or the goal. So we were able to still reach, and Anne may have the information on how many people we reached and what other communications we had that went out to tell folks about it. But we were able to really give that the information and the curriculum directly to teachers.
Thank you, Sharon. I know we're cutting close on time. I feel like we could probably talk about this event for hours. But before we kind of start wrapping up, I'm going to jump to, I'm going to talk about, because we've talked about some earbuds and budget a little bit, and I don't want anyone in the room to feel intimidated, like we don't have a budget. How can I make this work? So Lindsay, I was thinking we could talk a little bit about what are some like must-haves for this experience versus like what are the nice to have kind of things.
Must-haves are the people like the Larrys and the Sharons and the Anns that are willing to get out there and build the relationships to recruit the mentors, to bring in students. Like Sharon mentioned, like thinking outside the box, like how can there's no right way to structure the experience. We started in a one-on-one situation, but we deviated from that in several places. And if you can find a big group of students and a big group of mentors, like Sharon described with her Spectrum Health team, that's amazing. So there's lots of different ways to structure this. But really finding the people that are willing to do some of the footwork, show up as mentors. It was that grassroots group of us that started this process were also the ones that were like, okay, I'm going to try to shuffle my schedule around because now we have a teacher that needs to have somebody in their classroom at 2:00 and nobody signed up for that, session. So there was a lot of that flexibility required at the beginning as well. In terms of other things, I would say having a way to the clear communication was critical because we were sending mentors into school buildings. So being able to give them very specific information. I know a lot of that is included in the playbook, but it is important for them to know if there's a specific door they have to enter into, and we asked for all that information up front so that we didn't have to keep going back and forth with the teachers, because communication gets sticky, especially, as you get into the school year and things get really busy. It's harder and harder to pin people down for details. So collecting as much of that specific information up front definitely made the job easier down the road. And I think just, finding some people that are passionate about it was really the number one thing, because that was very contagious. And once somebody got in there and participated the first time, it wasn't difficult to get them back. It was just trying to sell it initially was always the hurdle. And then after that, it became much easier.
Thank you, Lindsay. Yes, and Larry, I don't know if you want to kind of share with the group the comment you just put in the chat. That would be great.
Yeah, so just making that communication piece that Lindsay was talking about is huge right now with COVID. Some schools are not going to allow volunteers to come in or outside people to come in, but I believe some schools still will be able to do that. Just make sure that you have that process in place for that. And just because you can't get a mentor within the building doesn't mean that you can't connect a mentor to the classroom. Now that we've gone through a pandemic, a lot more educators feel more comfortable using Zoom and other technologies like that. And so we can still Skype in a mentor into the classroom to at least get the activity started, and then the teacher can take it from there. So there's still opportunities there if the mentor can't get into the classroom.
And actually, it's easier to get mentors if they can do it virtually, because there's no travel time. So that's a benefit for that as well.
Excellent. That's all great advice for anyone who's setting out to start doing this this great event. So as we start to wrap up, I wanted to give each of you, a moment to kind of share like one key takeaway you hope someone in the audience is, one key takeaway, one key like action step that you hope everyone can kind of, write it down on a Post-it note and then go act on it. And we can start with Larry. Unless Larry needs a second, then we can start with Sharon.
I'll talk about mine, but mine's less on the prep side and more about the excitement side. Having somebody come into an elementary classroom is a big deal for elementary students. They're always excited to have visitors. And so imagine when you come in, just treat yourself like a rock star. Be excited, be over enthusiastic. And especially for computer science, be excited about computer science and coding and what they're accomplishing and what they're doing, because students remember experiences. It's not so much that they remember the exact code that they put on the screen, but they remember the experience of what happened. And so if you could try to make that as memorable as possible, I highly recommend doing it. We didn't get a chance to talk about it, but we did a coding party where we had 400 students in a cafeteria, and we had mentors on the microphone and people dancing on stage, and we just made it a huge experience. And that's going to be something memorable for the students. And so I would recommend pushing for that.
I know we were going to talk about the coding party, but time just got away from us. We partnered with one of the school systems back in 2019, pre-pandemic. And we were able to get, several hundred, 400 students in a room together, and they did pairs on one laptop, and they did pair coding, and we had mentors that were dancing, and they did the dance party tutorial, which Larry talked about earlier, because it's just so fun. So you can grow this, there's really no limits. Again, customizable to whatever your resources you have, that are available to you. So Sharon, key takeaway for the group?
I guess intentional relationships is my key takeaway. All right. It's a little bit more work, but it's worth it. So, and it's also not that hard, right? So you call someone, you ask to speak with them, and then they say yes, which is odd sometimes, but that's true. That's all it takes, right? And then you again talk. So you start with the admin, talk to the teachers, and then they're excited about it. But it takes a little bit. And I think especially now too, when we're getting so much electronic communication, to actually just sit down and talk with someone, especially, and this has been brought up before, but it was very true pre-pandemic, where teachers were very intimidated by the technology. If you can calm them down that it won't be on them to deal with technology, they're going to be welcoming to you into their classroom. But it may take that moment to really say, no, we got this. We got that part taken care of, because they're good at disciplining their children. They're good at classroom management. They're trained to do that. They're not trained to lead tech tutorials. So if you can actually get to them, talk to them, and then explain that, it's going to be highly likely then that they'll invite you into the classroom, and that relationship will be built.
Absolutely. All right, Lindsay, key takeaway.
And I would just add to what Sharon just said there and what Larry said. This program was not perfect. Probably in any iteration of it was it perfect. But what we found over and over, and the reality is students are choosing a career path by 5th grade. So if we don't put some things in front of them to broaden their horizons a little bit, or they're at least self-selecting out of things by 5th grade. And what this program does, although it's not perfect, is it gives them a sense of, this is not as scary as I thought it might be. Actually, this is really fun. I like the music, and I like that I can build things and make them work on the screen in front of me. Huge step in just opening their minds a little bit. And at the end of the day, I have never participated in a program where the numbers consistently came back so stinking high. I think Ann has included some of that data in the playbook, but it was astounding. Like when we asked the question at the end of it, would you participate next year? It was like 100% of the teachers and 100% of the mentors said, yes, I want to do this again. And to see something like that, that's as simple as a 1.5 hour experience. Now, not to say that all the setup and organization logistics are simple, but that the reality is it's a 1.5 hour experience. And, you know, occasionally we get people that would push back and say, what are kids actually learning about coding in an hour and a half? They're not, right? They're not going to know how to code in an hour and a half. But what they do know is that there's this website called Code.org that exists. And what we found over and over is that teachers would now make Code.org one of the approved free time activities in their classroom. They would send it home as a resource document on their Canvas pages or their, you know, educational classroom websites, and that kids were continuing to move forward. Not every kid, but that's okay. If we got 3 or 4 kids in every classroom, that is a huge win for moving more kids towards a place of technology-focused careers in the future. And that was the goal and felt like a win. So give it a shot. It won't be perfect, but you'll be surprised that there's so many good things that come out of it.
Yes, excellent points, all 3 of you. And yes, Lindsay, the data is in the feedback from all of the previous years, comments from educators and mentors about the experience. It is in there. So if anyone is interested in digging into that data and seeing how the event has grown and the overwhelmingly positive feedback we've received from both the educator side and the mentor side, it is all in the playbook. And as Jeff mentioned, don't forget to complete the survey. He's popped that link right in there in the chat. And yeah, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you to the panelists for sharing your insight. It's an incredible experience, and like I said, don't be intimidated by budget things. Like, you can make this. All you need is really the passion and the people to get it going.
Thanks very much. This ends our coding presentation today. I'd like to thank our presenters, Lindsay, Larry, Ann, and Sharon. We appreciate everyone's time. I hope you had some great takeaways, and I hope you'll enjoy all the features of the conference. Exhibitor networking break is next, so take some time after this session to video chat with exhibitors or watch their informational videos, or go to the networking tab to be randomly paired with another attendee for an opportunity to meet new people. So thanks very much and enjoy your day.